Can you turn things around with a girl who's losing interest, who asks you for space, or tells you that she's not sure how she feels about you? This is one of the most common questions that I get from clients. And the answer is yes, but not by doing any of the things that most guys assume will work to get her back. In fact, the things that stop a woman from pulling away and turn things around are very often counterintuitive. In a lot of ways, they're the exact opposite of what you naturally want to do. So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 powerful tools so that you stop chasing her, turn things around so that she's chasing you instead. I'm going to go through all 5 and give you real world examples of how to use them to reattract a woman and stop her from pulling away. Hi, I'm Bobby Rio, and having coached so many guys who've come to me in a situation where the woman they like is starting to get a little cold, or she tells them that she's just not sure what she wants anymore. Sometimes she's already mentioned the idea of just being friends. I've had to spend a lot of time developing tools and techniques that can quickly change a girl's mind about you. So if you've ever been in that situation, or you're in that situation right now, I'm gonna go through 5 of these tools right now. So the first tool is sort of a meta idea or a mindset that's meant to counteract your natural inclination. Because if you're like most guys, when a girl starts losing interest, we go into panic mode, or we fall into something that I refer to as emotional quicksand, and we get really desperate, right? We get desperate in trying to show her or convince her that we're right for her, right? This might mean confessing our feelings. It might mean giving her a gift or trying to plan some super romantic date to impress her, and it often backfires. I have another video on my channel, the 5 big mistakes guys make when a woman pulls away. And in that video, you can find it. I explain why these mistakes are so deadly. But for this video, it's just important to know that they don't work. You may have already realized they don't work. So the first overarching mindset or meta strategy is something I call the pullback. And this one move that takes almost no skill to pull off taps more psychological attraction trigger points than just about anything else you can do. It's this idea of a mental and emotional pullback, and it's really effective. What does this mean? It means texting or calling a little less, or not calling for a couple days at a time, just really pulling back your communication, wanting to see her a little less than you did in the beginning, acting a little less enthusiastic about her, a little less certain about her. So why does this work better than confessing your feelings or giving her some gift? It really comes down to triggering one principle of basic human psychology. Humans have a huge fear of loss. Even when we're not sure we want something, the minute that we sense we're losing it, a natural instinct begins to kick in for us to want to hold on to it. And part of it is because of this. If a woman is losing attraction to you, if you can just sense that something is different, we've all been there. It's because doubt has crept into her mind. And once that doubt creeps in, now she's focusing on all the things she doesn't like about you, all the reasons it might not work out. And that causes her to put the brakes on. On the other hand, when she thinks that she's about to lose you, the opposite happens. She starts to focus on all your positive qualities. Again, it's this weird human psychology where we hate to lose something that we already have. So that's sort of the big meta picture tool to start with, is that you have to eliminate this certainty in her that she has you. Because if she knows she has you, then she is in control. She's dictating everything. When you hang out, she's dictating how much time you spend together. When you guys do meet up, she dictates whether or not you get physical. She dictates how often you text. And when she's in control of these things, your value is diminishing in her eyes because she knows that she's in control. And it's hard for a woman to respect a man who lets her be in control. So now let's go through some of the tools that take this feeling of control away from her. So one of the things that I always try to help a client do is create some cognitive dissonance in her. So what does this mean? What does cognitive dissonance mean? Cognitive dissonance occurs When someone experiences conflicting beliefs or conflicting attitudes, and it creates a sense of discomfort that they want to resolve. We've all experienced this at some point with a woman. I can almost guarantee where if you go through your mind, you'll find this, where things don't line up. There's this incongruency that drives us crazy with her behavior. So how does incongruency or cognitive dissonance lead to a woman feeling more attraction to you? Well, as she tries to reconcile her perception of you with this new unexpected behavior or this new attitude, that feeling of control that she had starts slipping away. She thought she had you. She thought she had you all figured out, and now it's like all of a sudden you don't make as much sense to her. So let me share a real life example to kind of drill this home from a client of mine to illustrate how powerful this can actually be in reigniting attraction in a woman if she's losing interest. So my client was dating this girl, Chelsea, who saw him as a typical nice guy, right? He was predictable, romantic. He was just the kind of guy who probably had his heart on his sleeve. She can tell he probably got broken up with plenty of times. She had him pegged as that certain type of nice guy. And she kept cooling off the relationship, asking for space, talking about, hey, maybe we should just try being friends. She would never really move forward with her. So I'm working with him and I'm trying to find a way to zap this nice guy image that she has of him. And as we're talking, he casually tells me about how he had once been on a reality TV show a few years back. It was a show kind of like the show The Bachelor, less popular than The Bachelor, but the kind of show where a bunch of guys are competing over girls. And in the show, he ends up kissing a few of the girls on camera, like multiple girls, literally making out with them on camera in this show. And I asked him, I said, has Chelsea ever seen this video? And he's like, no way. I've never even told her about it because, you know, it's going to make her think I'm some kind of player. It's going to hurt her feelings. She's going to see me with other guys. And I'm like, no, she needs to see that video. So why does she need to see video? Because it would create cognitive dissonance for her. She had this solid image of him as this sweet, predictable, nice guy, but seeing him in a completely different light, being bold, confident, a little wild with these other girls would challenge that perception. Now, here's the thing. If he just took that video and he like showed it to her one day, like, hey, look, I was in this reality TV show and girls like me. You can't just come out and show her this because she's gonna kind of know like, why is he showing me this? This is weird. Is he trying to impress me? Is he trying to make me jealous? And the thing is, if you do that, if you just show it to her and she obviously knows what you're doing, like, hey, look, I used to be cool, girls like me, it's gonna diminish almost all of the effect it would have had. So what I told him was, have one of your friends post it on your Facebook page, like almost like he just found it somewhere, like, dude, I just saw this is so funny. The point really is just now she's gonna see it, but not in a way where he's showing it to her, not in a way where she feels like he's trying to manipulate her with it. And guess what? It worked. When she saw the video, it threw her off balance in the best possible way. Suddenly, she's now questioning all her assumptions about him. Maybe this guy is not as nice as I thought, whatever, you know, and she starts seeing him as having multiple layers, someone who's not as easily defined or predictable as she thought he was. And that mystery, that unpredictability now has her paying attention again because she's like, maybe I don't have this guy as figured out as I thought I did. And that's exciting for a girl. Because we always say you don't want to be with a movie you already know the ending to. You want a movie that kind of makes you think a little bit, that throws you off your game a little bit. Well, you might say, well, Bobby, I've never been on a reality show. But that's not the point of this. The point is introducing two conflicting ideas into a woman's mind at once. And there's a lot of ways that you can do this. This was one example. One way to maybe wrap your head around this concept is to think about times that a girl has done this to you, where you have this one image of her, or you think she's always acting one way, you think she has this feeling towards you, you think she has this attitude or this sort of whatever, and then she does something so out of character that you're like, everything I thought she was feeling is different, and it confuses you. Think about a time a woman has done that to you. Again, where she does something so out of character that your entire perception of her just changes instantly. That's what you're going for. Now, to make this work, you have to have a clear understanding of what her perception of you currently is. Now, if you're not sure, I'll put a link in the description to a free assessment I have that identifies what I call your attraction profile. What this assessment does is it asks you 7 or 8 questions, and how you answer these identifies how the woman most likely sees you right now. And having this information allows you to now find ways to add some incongruency and some cognitive dissonance, some layers to you, which has her thinking, maybe I don't know him as well as I thought. Again, you can find the link to the assessment below, and we'll get back to this idea, but let's move to the next one, which will be easier for you to conceptualize, and that's to create a triangle. If you read the book Art of Seduction by Robert Greene, where he talks about the greatest seducers throughout history, he talks about this idea of how powerful this triangle can be. The tactic actually worked wonders for that same client that I just mentioned and the situation that he was dealing with, because after we created some cognitive dissonance, the next step was to add a sense of urgency to the relationship. This girl, Chelsea, was pulling away. She was starting to feel a little too secure. She was taking her time deciding if she wanted to fully commit to him or not. And when a woman feels like she has all the time in the world, that she can just sit around and make her decision and you'll be there, that interest starts to fade. So I told them you need to create a triangle. So what do I mean? Well, one of the things that I had recommended to my client was to take his mind off of her. You got to get your mind off of her and to go out there and start socializing a bit more. So he joined a local hiking group, a group of people who met up every Saturday morning, and they would, go on a hike in a nearby mountain. It was something that he was generally interested in, so it made sense. But as luck would have it, and what often happens when you get out there and you are social, there was a woman in the group who was cool to hang out with. Now, to be clear, he was not interested in her romantically at all. But because she was in the group and because he would often talk to her and they would meet up, and she was just somebody that was fun to talk to, she naturally became part of the conversation when he was talking to the girl Chelsea. Now, if he consciously, again, started to try to make her jealous about it, it probably wouldn't have worked. It probably would have backfired. And she would have thought, oh, he's just trying to make me jealous. Just like if he had showed her that video consciously, it wouldn't have worked. But because it was really just part of his life and he didn't have to shoehorn it in or go out of his way to try to talk about this other girl. Because here's the thing, anytime a woman can tell what you're trying to do, and women are very smart, when they see what you're trying to do, it won't work. She'll see through it. But because it really was just part of his life, and he didn't have to try to shoehorn it in or go out of his way to talk about this other girl, it worked. Here's one of the most important things to realize with women. It's so much better when she makes the assumption on her own, meaning whatever you want a woman to believe about you, rather than tell her, lead her to assume it. Because we rarely believe things that we're told, but we believe almost everything that we assume. And here's the thing, women have a sixth sense when it comes to other women. The moment he casually mentions this girl, his girlfriend started zoning in. She starts thinking, is he interested in this new hiking buddy? Even little things like he posted a picture from the group and he was standing closer to this girl, not with his arm around her or anything like that, just standing near her. Or him just being excited to go on the hike. Just Chelsea seeing him looking forward to Saturday mornings made her a bit nervous. It made her feel less in control. Was he excited about going hiking, or was he excited to see this girl? That's what her mind is thinking. And as she's thinking about this, she starts to wonder, am I losing my grip on him? Do I not have that control? Now, like I said, we kind of stumbled into this triangle just as a way to get him out of the house and meeting people, but it worked perfectly. This is one of the things that I have to explain to guys, because a lot of guys will say, I hate to play games, or I don't want to be fake. And it's like, you only have to play games when you're sitting home obsessing about this girl, staring at your phone, waiting for her to text. If you're out there living your life independent of her, you don't have to fake these things. They'll already exist. They'll fall into your lap like it did for my client. The only thing that you have to consciously do is not try to comfort the girl, because like I said earlier, it's counterintuitive, but my client was like, Chelsea's starting to get jealous about this girl at the hiking group. Should I stop going to the hiking group? Because that's our natural inclination. We want to eliminate that friction or that tension or that uncertainty for the girl. But that uncertainty, that tension actually draws her in. And it also creates urgency, because now she starts to realize that she can't take all the time in the world to decide if she wants him or not. She doesn't have, she could lose him because now there's a little bit of competition, even if it was just in her head, and that made her step up her game. I remember him telling me that he was meeting Chelsea after one of his hikes, and she shows up dressed in a sundress, her hair done, her toenails done, clearly trying to impress him, which she hadn't cared much about for a really long time, because suddenly she's more invested in the relationship. She's more eager to spend time with him, and the dynamic between them shifts in his favor. So let's keep this thought in your mind. How can I create a triangle with her? Okay, so the next thing that you can do to turn the tables is something I call attention straying. So if you've been giving her too much attention, constantly focusing on her, making her the center of your world, imagine that there's something called an attention dial. And up until now, when you're with her, that attention dial is at a 9 or a 10. Well, it might be time to dial it back to a 5 or a 6. This goes back to our meta concept from earlier of the pullback. Here's how the whole entire thing would work. Attention straying is all about gradually pulling back the amount and the quality of the attention that you're giving her when the two of you are together. It's a way to make her feel a little less secure, to spark that sense of urgency, that sense of curiosity in her mind, like, what's going on? Something is different with him. I can't put my finger on it, but something's different. We've all been there with a woman where she's still being nice to us, but we can sense that the amount of attention that we're getting from her, it's been dialed back a little bit. And that's the feeling that you want to create in her. Here's some ways that you can start implementing this concept. Start by subtly just checking your phone more often. Not in an obnoxious way, but just enough for her to notice that you're not completely absorbed in every word she's saying to you. If your phone rings, don't just take the call in front of her. Excuse yourself and go into another room to take the call. Let her wonder what's so important that it pulls your attention away from her. If you're out with her, start conversations with other people. Whether it's a quick chat with the bartender or a longer conversation with a friend, let her see that you're not solely focused on her. Make her wait a minute or two while you finish your conversation. This can make her feel like she's not your only priority, which increases her desire to get that attention back. Now, a lot of guys might be afraid to do this, but I was just talking to my friend Rob Judge, reminiscing about some of the old dating coaches and pickup artists that we used to know back in the day. And Rob was telling me about a time that he met up with this legendary pickup artist, Zan, who just had incredible game. And they're at this bar in New York, and Zan was with this supermodel. Now, Rob had never met Zan before, and he starts talking to him, and Rob has all his attention, and the model girl is like standing there, and Rob assumes that the girl's gonna lose interest because Zan's like ignoring her. And later Rob looks over and Zan is making out with her on the corner. She didn't leave. She didn't get bored. If anything, Zan's lack of attention made her want him even more. She saw him as being a high value guy who didn't need to fawn over her, and that made her work harder to get his attention back. Attention straying is a nice subtle way to shift that dynamic and keep her on her toes. Okay, so here's a powerful mindset shift technique that can completely turn the tables, especially if you find yourself constantly seeking a woman's approval and noticing that she's giving you less and less of it. It's the shift from being screened to doing the screening. Here's what usually happens with a guy when he senses that a woman is losing interest in him or pulling away. And like I said, we've all been there, and we panic and we start to try harder to gain her approval. We want to prove ourselves. We want to live up to her standards. But here's the truth. This only makes you seem more desperate, and it lowers your value in her eyes. What you need to do instead is flip the script and start screening her. Again, counterintuitive. Here's what I mean. Screening is all about subtly shifting the dynamic so that she feels like she's the one being evaluated. It's not about being harsh or obvious or judgmental. It's about casually bringing up your values and your interests in a way that makes her wonder if she measures up to your standards. So, how do you screen a woman? First off, and this isn't just for this situation, but in general, right? It's a great idea to do this. You want to be aware of your own values and your own interests. You want to be really clear on this. You want to be clear on what you value in a girlfriend, whether it's intelligence, spontaneity, ambition, kindness. You need to know what's important to you. Now, once you know that, once you know your values, then you start to weave them into the conversation in a way that feels natural. So for example, I love reading. I love learning new things. So maybe if I was with a woman, I would tell a girl about a book that I just read. So if I was talking to her and I might be excited and be like, oh, I just finished this book, Sapiens. It was just so interesting. I learned so much about humans and the history and all of that. And then I'd tell her a little bit about the book. And then I'd ask her, so what's the most interesting book that you've read lately? Because now she's gonna be like, oh wow, what can I tell him that will impress him? What interesting books have I read? Now, a lot of women haven't even read a book, right? Since they got out of college. So a lot of girls will be like, yeah, I haven't really read anything in a while. And you can kind of give a, oh, really? Then you let it move on. You don't scold her for it, but you kind of let her know, right? Another thing you might ask is like, what's the most spontaneous thing that you've done recently? Just her going through her mind, trying to find something spontaneous that she's done and trying to impress you, really, that begins to change the dynamic. So another example for something that I might say, so I'm really big, I donate to charity, and one of the charities that I like to donate to is those sort of Make-A-Wish foundations where kids who have illness or they're dying, they get to experience something really memorable. And in a lot of ways, it's really just important for the parents to get to see their child so happy and have this memory to stay with. So if I'm with a woman and I'm telling a woman that, and I'm explaining to her why I like this, I might say, do you donate to any charities, or do you volunteer anywhere, or believe in any causes? Again, maybe she does, maybe she doesn't, but just asking her demonstrates a little bit that you're screening her. Does she live up to your standards? Does she have your values? Now, to be clear, the key here is subtlety. You're not interrogating her. You're just slipping these questions into the conversation in a very natural way when they make sense. And you're doing it to gauge if she aligns with what you're looking for. When you ask these type of questions, the goal is to make her feel that you're genuinely interested in whether she meets your standards or not. This creates a shift where now, again, she's focused on proving herself to you rather than the other way around. This shifts the power dynamic between you, and it makes her more invested. Again, when you combine this with the other tools that we talked about, it's really powerful. It's really powerful when there's a triangle going on and she's got some cognitive dissonance and your attention is starting to pull away. All of these things are happening, and now she's realizing, oh, do I meet his standards? Am I good enough for him? And you want her realizing that she has to meet your standards and not the other way around. It also shows that you're not desperate for her approval, which is incredibly attractive, because now she's not just thinking about whether you're good enough for her, she's thinking about whether she's good enough for you, and that's exactly where you want to be. Now, one of the most powerful things that you can do, though, is just eliminating the subtle mistakes that you're making. Because the reality is, most of us are making really subtle mistakes, and it's because we have a certain attraction type, as I mentioned earlier. We have a certain vision of what it means to be an attractive guy when we're with a woman. We've had this vision for probably since we were in middle school, and we continually do it whenever we're with a girl that we like. We do certain things because we believe that these things are what we need to do to get her. And certain guys fit into certain categories, right? And so what I did, like I said, was I created this 7-question quiz where it identifies 7 common situations in relationships, dating, flirting. And the way that you answer these questions pinpoints where you fit in this attraction profile, and then it pinpoints your mistakes and how to fix them. It's completely free. You can click the link in the description, and you literally answer 7 or 8 questions, and then it'll formulate your custom profile with a plan on how to fix it. I recommend that because most guys are completely oblivious to these mistakes that they're making. So click the link, take the quiz, and if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment, and let me know what you thought was the most insightful thing you learned in this video, and anything that you want me to go further into, because I went through a lot of this stuff very quickly. We had a lot to cover, and this video is already in the over 20 minutes long. But if there's one of these techniques that you're like, I'd like to hear more about that, leave a comment, and I know that in a future video I can expand on it for you.